All right, let's do this. I have lusted after this bike for a long time. This is my boy, Brandon's bike, and this is the gnarliest FZ1 I have ever seen. As you saw in the glorious glamour shots before we started, this bike looks sick. Now, I'm gonna forget, because this is an FZ1, so this is the naked upright version of the R1, and I wanna say this is an 09? I'm probably getting that wrong. He'll correct me. Whatever the description for the video says, that's what this is. This is an FZ1, and Brandon, the guy that owns it, did the Euro conversion on it. So if I remember right, that's why the headlight looks the way it does, and he added about $2 grand worth of carbon fiber to it. You can see this carbon fiber surround on the gas tank, and there's a bunch of other carbon fiber parts on it. Now, something you should know about this dude, Brandon, is he changes bikes every 4 to 5 minutes. He gets a new bike constantly. He is, like, when you talk about motorcycle people, this guy, Brandon, that owns this, is the motorcycle dude. Like, he has the most pure passion for riding and like being on a motorcycle as anyone I've ever known. Like, the only person I can compare it to, him to, is my brother and his buddy that do these like 1,200 mile ridiculous cross-country trips on their Harleys. Oh, I can go. What am I doing? I'm so distracted by this gorgeous bike. And so anyway, Brandon's been telling me for a long time, you need to come ride this thing, you need to come ride this thing, and well, actually, no, that's not true. I've been begging him, Brandon, can I come ride that thing? I want to come ride that thing. Can I please come ride that thing? And so he's getting ready to sell it. This is actually the night before he sells it. This is the last time he's going to have it, and I had to. I could not ride this bike. This thing is so beautiful. It's so well put together, and as an FZ1, like, I'm not an FZ1 guy. Like, I don't really get excited about naked sport bikes, but I thought this would be a really cool chance to compare it to the 1290R Super Duke that I rode the other week, and again, it's just the sickest bike. So, initial riding impressions. I've only been riding it for a couple minutes, but I can tell you right now, the power, being that this is a 4-cylinder versus a big bore 2-cylinder like the KTM was, the power band comes on much more like a sport bike. Now, that's totally expected because this is the R1 engine, just detuned a little bit. So the power definitely comes on a little bit later in the RPM. This is about 4 grand, and you really start to feel it pick up around 4 or 5 grand. And that's, again, hi. The second thing I've noticed, besides just the power coming on a little bit later, is the seating position it's got a little bit wider of a seat. It's a little bit softer of a seat, I think. And so just cruising through town, I feel like it's a little bit more comfortable than the KTM, which is not a knock on the 1290R. It's just that this bike is really easy to ride. It's really comfortable. So another thing, just speaking of the engine, because again, we're just doing a little bit of riding around town before I actually take it on some more curvy roads, the engine braking compared to the KTM is totally different. This thing revs so easily and revs so well that, like right there, when I let off the throttle, it's really not engine braking at all. You really actually have to use the brakes on this bike. And again, as always, we're gonna ride super conservative because A, the dude that owns this bike is like one of the coolest people. Second, it's not my bike. Third, it's being sold tomorrow, so this is really not my bike to destroy. And just in general, like when people let me ride their bikes, I try to be as respectful as I can while being entertaining. I don't think you want to watch a video of me going 20 miles an hour everywhere. So this was kind of an impromptu thing. This was fairly last minute, so I probably should have looked up the horsepower that these bikes were making. I don't know if this one, you know what, I want to say this is an 07 because I don't think this has the crossplane engine. So this bike is probably making between 150 and 170 horsepower. And like I said, it's a 4-cylinder sport bike engine, so it's probably much higher in the RPM range. But you can tell, if this is 4,000, you can tell it starts to rev really aggressively right around 4,500. All right, we have no traffic. Let's give it a rip. Oh yeah, no, that feels really, really good. I'll say this about the FZ1. So if you wanted a bike that drove a little bit more like a sport bike, but was more comfortable like a traditional, like upright bike, this would be the one to have. That was like third throttle. That was nothing. As much as I love the KTM, I'll tell you right now, an FZ1 like this, even one that's been customized like this, is going to be about a third the price. And you may already know that, but I want to say this FZ1, it's selling tomorrow. Like I said, as of tonight, this FZ1 that I'm riding right now with all the custom parts, all the carbon fiber, and this has been meticulously maintained. The owner is a mechanic. All he works on is motorcycles. He is a motorcycle guy. This one's going for a little over $5,000, which is way less than half of what you could get that KTM I rode for. I love the KTM still, but just accessibility-wise, an FZ1 is going to be a lot more accessible price-wise. Now, another question that I haven't really addressed with other bikes in the past is reliability. Well, I can tell you right now that the owner, Brandon, just rode this bike, actually just this past week. He rode it all the way from St. Louis, Missouri out to the tail of the Dragon, which is not a short trip. He was riding the bike hundreds of miles every single day, and he had zero issues. Goose egg. And this is not, again, it's not a brand new bike. He had no issues that I know of whatsoever. He had this thing loaded down with gear and tents and food and all the other stuff that one of these bikes probably doesn't want to carry. And it's a dead reliable bike. He's really loved it. And the guy that owns it is really, really picky about his bikes. He knows his bikes really well, and he wouldn't own something that he had to worry about. So, and I've had friends that had the R1s, all generations of R1, and they all seem to do really well. So as far as I can tell, Yamaha just builds a good product. They know what they're doing. Handling wise, I'm not smart enough to say how much this differs from the KTM. It feels kind of similar, and that's somebody that rides a KTM is probably going to get really mad about that. But it's straight handlebars, it tips in really easy, it wants to turn, it's ready to turn, it's happy to turn. I have no complaints whatsoever about the steering. And again, it's not my bike, so I don't like to push these bikes too terribly hard. But if you're considering an FZ1, comfort-wise, as comfortable as anything else with a sport bike engine that you're going to ride. Power-wise, it's much more similar to a traditional sport bike than it is that big V-twin KTM I rode. Gas mileage-wise, it's probably 30, 40, whatever miles per gallon. It gets as good a gas mileage as you ride it for. If you ride the snot out of it, it's obviously not going to do so well, but I mean, all modern sport bike engines are pretty efficient. It's pretty fair to assume that even something like this that's give or take 1,000 cc's, you're going to do 40 plus miles to the gallon all day long, as long as you're not riding like a total hooligan. So again, I wish I had more technical information, but this ride was kind of a last-minute thing. Like I said, the bike went up for sale, and Brandon told me, hey, if you're going to ride this thing, you've got a limited amount of time. And the past couple days, it's rained here, and then tonight I was just like, Brandon, can I please ride it? I know you're about to get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. I want to ride it, please. And he's like, yeah, dude, come on over. So we got to ride it. I'm really glad I did. If you're into FZ1s, you'll be into this bike. This bike is sick. It's comfortable, they're dead cheap, so if you let me say this, if you liked the KTM review, but you're like, oh, 17 grand, that's not gonna happen for me. Look at the FZ1, they're dope, and then look into the European headlight and all the other stuff that Brandon added to this bike. I'm sure you can find it all online, it's just sick. So once again, this has been a short and sweet review of an FZ1, kind of last minute. I hope you enjoyed it. I love this bike. Thanks again to Brandon. You're a good dude. You're a solid dude. Thank you so much for letting me ride it. We'll see you all on Sunday for the Sunday Sit Down. Bye. everybody. Welcome